Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Military Mind, bringing you news from the front lines. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. Russian forces attacked Ukraine overnight into the first day of June, using more than 250 strike drones. According to Ukrainian military officials, drone impacts were recorded at 18 locations across the country. One of the attacks targeted the Odessa region, where 6 people were wounded, according to regional authorities, after residential and industrial infrastructure came under attack. In the city of Odessa, a Russian drone struck the first floor of a residential building, partially destroying several apartments. In Kharkiv, strikes hit residential districts during the night, leaving 4 people wounded. In the Chernihiv region, 8 people, including 3 children, were wounded in a drone attack, according to Ukraine's state emergency services. Meanwhile, Ukraine's campaign of medium-range strike against Russian supply routes is increasingly disrupting Russian logistics across occupied territories. According to the Institute for the Study of War, the think tank says recent Ukrainian strikes have created logistical difficulties for Russian forces across southern Ukraine, from occupied parts of the Luhansk region to Crimea. According to analysts, several Russian military bloggers have also acknowledged the impact of the campaign, reporting significant fuel shortages and growing difficulties with troop rotations and ammunition deliveries throughout the occupied territories. Ukrainian Defense Minister Mikhailo Fedorov said on May 27th that Ukraine had begun what he described as a logistic lockdown of Russian forces by expanding its medium-range strike campaign against Russian supply and transport networks. On the front line, Russian forces continue efforts to eliminate the Ukrainian bridgehead around Kupiansk and the Oskil River, concentrating their main attacks on the northern and eastern sectors. Military analysts say the Russian plan appears to involve 2 converging advances aimed at splitting the Ukrainian position in 2, one towards eastern Kupiansk and another towards Kupiansk-Vuzlovi. The objective would then be to destroy the isolated Ukrainian positions separately. However, analysts also note that despite Russian attempts to relieve previously surrounded assault groups near Kupiansk and a major grouping of forces carried out in April, Russian troops remain far from achieving that goal. Russian forces have been attempting to capture Kupiansk since at least the beginning of last autumn, but Ukrainian defenders continue to hold the city and surrounding positions. In the Middle East, American forces carried out what they describe as defensive strikes against Iranian radar sites and drone command centers near Goruk and on Kashmir Island, according to United States Central Command. The U.S. military said the strikes were conducted on May 30th and 31st in response to what it called aggressive actions by Iran, including the destruction of an American MQ-1 drone operating over international waters. Iranian media had earlier reported the downing of the drone during the night of May 30th. Following the U.S. announcement, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claimed that American forces had struck a telecommunications tower in Sirik. The IRGC said it responded by targeting the airbase allegedly involved in the operation and claimed to have destroyed its intended targets. Russian terrorist attacks using strike UAVs and reconnaissance systems are now being met with an uncompromising response from the Ukrainian Defense Forces. Interceptor drones have become one of the most effective, asymmetric, and cost-effective means of combating Russian drones in the air. Taking down a UAV at an altitude of several kilometers or catching up to a high-speed Lancet drone is like hitting one needle with another at full speed. It's top-level piloting, a real-time game of life and death. Every Shahed or Zala drone shot down by a Ukrainian drone saves a scarce missile from large air defense systems such as Patriot, Iris-T, or NASAMS, which can now be used exclusively to intercept Russia's ballistic or cruise missiles. Another Russian attempt to break through in a lightweight Chinese buggy ended in the soldiers' immediate demobilization, so to speak. The desire to save on armor cost the assault troops their lives, and their vehicle was literally destroyed. The Russian cameraman was undoubtedly incredibly lucky. He was at a safe distance from the immediate epicenter of the explosion and avoided being struck by large pieces of debris from a destroyed vehicle. However, the rule of acoustics and physics cannot be defied. The sonic boom and excess pressure from the explosion of an anti-tank mine in an open area likely gave the cameraman a concussion. In the Chernihiv region, a soldier from the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine achieved something that borders on the impossible. He shot down a deadly Shahed drone in mid-air with precise fire from a standard small arms weapon. Thanks to the skill of a single soldier, yet another Russian weapon of terror failed to reach its target. It did not destroy anyone's home, and it did not claim any lives. The Russian High Command, which had previously timidly relocated the remnants of the Black Sea Fleet from occupied Sevastopol to Novorossiysk, has once again been reminded that there are no longer safe havens for them. Unique and highly telling surveillance footage has appeared online, capturing the moment when the occupiers' pride and joy, the frigate Admiral Essen, was successfully struck within the inner waters of the Russian Navy's naval base. According to preliminary data, the latest domestically produced long-range strike drones of the FP1 or 2 type were used to penetrate the defenses and strike the target. The released video clearly captures the flight path and the exact moment of impact on the frigate's hull. The powerful detonation of the warhead caused a massive explosion, shrouding the ship's hull with heavy smoke. Russian occupation forces suffering massive losses in open drone duels are increasingly resorting to insidious guerrilla-style tactics. In the area of responsibility of the Ukrainian Third Army Corps, the Russians have launched a veritable covert hunt for Ukrainian armored vehicles and logistic routes. To this end, the invaders have begun to massively deploy so-called Zdun drones, FPV suicide drones that are placed on special supports or mounts pre-positioned along routes and remain in a state of deep standby. Ukrainian pilots from the Fatum BBS battalion spotted several Zdun drones and destroyed them before they had a chance to carry out their mission. And with that footage, we conclude this edition of Military Mind. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.